We go on one. One.
Like all those good movies. Wait. One go or just go one? Which count backwards, forwards?
I think
One just makes it easier.
we go Junkin Poon, right? Like you just go rock, paper, sit.
Perfect.
Yeah. Go ahead and get settled in, guys. Ladies and gents. Babies and gentle thems.
Or JD's and Lentilman.
So here we are, week 8. What are we even doing here? I wonder to myself, whoop. We're hitting the old-timey record button every time. We've come a long way since week 1, back when things were so much harder. And now, here we are, in week 8. Look at us. We made it. There we go. Let's hit that button. And let's make it go time. Welcome, everyone, to the last of the big weeks for the summer concert series. I mean, the summer office hours series. I am one of your hosts, one of many this week. I am Prof. Ben, and I'm joined by a plethora, I'm going to overpronounce that, plethora of incredibly qualified folks to answer all of your questions and then some. And let's hit up the whole panel. Folks, woo, welcome to the end of the summer office series. And I'm going to unmute everybody. And at the same time, you know what? I'm also going to mute my Roomba because somehow after 8 weeks of doing this, I still forget to change the schedule on the upstairs Roomba. We're going to pause that. Welcome. So, it's one of those things where we're still learning over time. We get better at it. And Ivano, like we got to give you the proper title, sir. You are Prof.
Thank you.
Ivano. And yeah, Christian, if I get to it first, I'm definitely going to change your title to
Careful, Christian. He's gonna professor you.
I've been there, done that, so it's okay.
you want to be Prof O or Prof Christian? Because like Prof O sounds pretty rad. I'm gonna say
Like Dr. No, Professor O.
I like it. That's perfect.
I like it, except I don't know like if because I want the kind of like I want the villain look. I've got the evil layer. I've got the volcano layer. So like I don't know. Like I want you to decide like whether you think that's cool. Otherwise, I will
No, I'm
actually.
good. I'm good with that. I'm good with
All
that.
right, because Prof O is probably the raddest branding I think I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Man, and we're getting some hard-hitting questions even before we start. Thank you, the Duke. Why is building better than studying? Exam question answers.
Love this.
And I'm just gonna say like we get into the thick of it from the start. And this actually goes to a couple of different places. Yeah, we're getting it hard and fast. And woo, man, thank you guys for the turnout tonight. But I'm going to return here to this first one, which is before I get into sort of the why is building better? And there's a bunch of reasons why. And I think that a lot of heavy lifting has been done by you, Rob, and CJ on CJ and the Duke about talking about this topic and bringing it to the fore. Also by a lot of our dev advocates, but every student in our classrooms asks us this question every time they take the class. And they're like, how do I best study for the exam? That's going to be one of our answers, and we're going to hit it up here in a minute. But
Yeah, and it's awesome, Robert. We actually had your LinkedIn post in our notes for this week for that topic. So I think that's awesome.
Which is a cool thing, to be sure. And I also want to kind of just like throw this out here, and I'm gonna boop 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 boop. I want to kind of make sure that everybody understands. First and foremost, this week we did a thing. We seriously did a thing. Like, and that thing is, we nearly brought Now Learning to its knees, but it would not be stopped. And I don't know that it was just us. I don't know that it was just us. I don't know that it was just our efforts. I feel like it was kind of a group effort. It was kind of a community effort, but we had so many concurrent users yesterday, day before. We were starting to bring Now Learning to a point where engineering, like our own ops teams, were looking at it and going like, maybe we need to put some more resources on this because we got a lot of concurrent users. You guys all slash dotted that nonsense, and it was great. And it's because so many people recognize the value of like, it's like almost the end of August. Maybe we should go finish that class. So a thing that happened, like this is a thing that legit happened. Things are running a little bit slow, and management was looking at this going like, what if we decided to extend it? So I feel like we all together managed to like, meanwhile in the hall of justice, all of us got together and we just sort of we bum rushed Now Learning, and we bum rushed the program, and they extended it to October. Now, that's not to say that we should be lazy, right? We should still go like, oof, we got like a little bit of reprieve, right? Because I know a lot of people that watch this program or listen to it on their earbuds, headphones, ear holes, what have you. I don't know what they call them these days. What do the kids call them? Right? Procrastinators after my own heart. You wait until the last minute. Yeah, exactly. You wait until the last minute, only because you think that there are higher priorities, right? And if we know anything from the work that we've done over the last 8 weeks, priority is sometimes impact over urgency. And if suddenly we reduce urgency, then maybe priority goes down, right? But we know, all of us in here in this room and listening along, that we actually need to set ourselves a goal. We need to set ourselves a goal. We need to set ourselves a moment. We need to go make sure that we're going to go do this thing. So you got to get it done. You got to get it done. Okay, so you've been given a little bit of an extension. Very cool. However, What we want to do this week is we want to put a button or we want to put a pin. We want to make sure that there's a moment, an actual moment where we go
Final round. Fight!
and pretend, for the sake of just this moment, like getting ready to prepare for this exam. So even though you've had an extension until October, we might do this again. And I was joking in the pre-show. All the folks on the call know. And the pre-show is joking. This might be the Golden Girls best of episode supercut. And you know me, I love me some Golden Girls, right? So we're going to go through some greatest hits of test prep. We're going to go through some greatest hits of here's what we do to build. Here's what we're going to do to get everybody feeling confident, comfortable, excited about going after this thing that maybe has just become this beast in your mind. And we're going to hear from everybody in the panel today to make sure that you guys feel like you have this under control, right?
Yeah, Ben, speaking of Golden Girls, we've got a whole host of people here to kind of lend a hand, lend some encouragement, and lend some insight. Though I would never imply I don't want to Golden Girls are other professors.
You guys are all like, I was just gonna say, not to well, Sean, you know what I'm trying to say, right? Why don't we let everybody go around the room? We'll go around the horn real quick and make sure you guys give yourselves a shout out. Who are you? Who are you in the chat? Because some of you haven't been here before. Not in the chat, in the studio here.
In our stream.
So that's for us.
Professor Ermal, Professor Ivano, Professor O. There we go.
Oh,
All right, I'll go first since I'm the newest kid, I think, on the block. But I've had the pleasure of knowing both Ben and Sean a really long time. My name is Christian O. I am a principal technical trainer. I'll be celebrating 7 years come September 15th. So cannot believe it's been 7 years. So I am excited to be here. This is a great opportunity for those who are not familiar with ServiceNow or those who might be familiar with ServiceNow, what we are able to offer for free and be able to lock in. Thank God that they did extend the deadline, lock in getting a exam voucher as well as taking advantage of the free ServiceNow certified sysadmin course that's available to you on the Now Learning platform. Just a couple things about me. I am dialing in from the DC metropolitan area, namely Fairfax, Virginia. And I am really excited to be here. Unfortunately, I can't stay the whole time, but I'll be here at least for the next 20, 30 minutes. So if you've got questions, you can also connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm very accessible. So if there's anything that you guys have for me later, I teach about, I think Ben was mentioning early in backstage, there's everything from HR to customer service management to field service management, performance analytics, and then I've been helpful with the workshops such as adopting a platform owner's mindset, Shark Camp for partners, and facilitation workshop as well. So I'm here and I'm glad to be here. And so feel free to give us questions. I'll turn it over to my good friend, Professor Ivano.
Sweet, man. And thanks, Christian. You got all the stuff that sometimes we don't get to cover. So I appreciate that, man. Ivano, sir, dialing in.
Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you, Professor Hall. I like that a lot, honestly. And well, something about me. So I am master technical trainer at the moment. This is my position. I've been with ServiceNow since 2011. So inside the company, I'm almost like a dinosaur. So I've been a very long time with with PS, and then I transitioned into education, more or less like my colleagues here. I'm covering a lot of classes spanning from ITSM, that is my thing in reality, and everything else. So service portal, HR, governance, risk and compliance. I've been working on the other things as well. So today I'm very excited to be here and support you guys in maybe getting your first step into ServiceNow, learning path with the CSA. So that's it. Exactly as Christian, I'm available to answer your question over LinkedIn if you want to connect. Yeah, we are there for everyone, really.
Oh, and I really
Thanks.
appreciate that. I'm gonna say I'm gonna play the thing because I'm just gonna say, like, now we're gonna get into the cheesecake portion of the show. All right. So with that particular supercut right there, I'm gonna go ahead and get into the meatiest parts of this whole shtick here.
We
And
got one more folk here waiting, and he's even mic'd down. I just threw him out to the LinkedIn chat.
What? All right. Awesome.
Also in our panel and list.
Oh, Ermal. Like, well, I figured like you're not just like you've done this shtick with us a couple times, but yeah, throw your words out there, man. Like for those of you guys who haven't caught Ermal's wisdom before.
I'm lucky to be here for the second time, basically. So thanks for having me. But yeah, my name is Ermal, and I'm the newest member of this group here, basically of this team. I joined ServiceNow about 2.5 years ago, and I teach mostly IT operations management courses. So everything related to CMDB or eventually service mapping, discovery, and those topics that are related to IT operations. I love ServiceNow. I'm trying to learn myself while I learn myself new topics while I try to teach those topics that I know, and it's an interesting journey. So I'm happy to try and answer any possible questions that you might have related to the exam or ServiceNow fundamentals or other questions that you might have.
And just to answer the question, sometimes I'm Blanche, sometimes I'm Rose. I feel like,
that's awesome.
honestly, the girls are a spectrum. Let's just put it out there. Like, it's sort of like when you get into the Myers-Briggs stuff, right? Like you're a little bit this, you're a little bit that, and depending on your sort of position at any given time, you might be all of them. So I love that question. And Mario, yes, you did join at the right time, and honestly, like you deserve a shout out for being one of the folks that could be in the room and should be in the room, and I should be bringing you in it sometimes. Yeah. So for those of you guys who are this is your first time, we've been doing this for about 2 months now. We did it a couple of years ago, and really glad to have everybody along. And so let's jump into the meat of things, right? Because you all have stuff to do. Let's not make you wait. So let's get into the first of our topics, which is always back to first principles, and then came from the parking lot, where we talk about stuff that we couldn't get into in a class. And then it's an AMA, it's Ask the Profs. And then last but not least, we talk about extra credit. So let's get into the thing. We talked about, like, y'all did it, right? We extended things. But like, let's take it a little bit further. Let's get into the sort of beefy, big, how do we figure this out? How do we go about studying, huh?
Taking that test and prepping those final steps to get in there and answer them, right?
So Sean, you had a thing like where you actually tried to send me a shirt, and I love this. And I'm going to just really highlight it this so that people can see the thing on the background, which is a big shout out to Ted Lasso. And it's one of those things where I feel like optimism is a choice. This actually came up in one of my classes today. Happiness is a choice. Sometimes you have to work at it, but also failure is a useful data point. So when we talk about failure being a useful data point, I think this is going to be where some of you might have to like throw yourself at this thing for the very first time just to get it out of the way. I cannot tell you the number of folks who have told me like, look, this thing is scary. I took it the first time. Maybe I failed, right? I will admit to everybody in here, and some of you have heard me, I failed the PA exam not once, not twice, but 3 times before I finally passed it.
And I failed event 3 times. So we're putting you in good company here.
Right. And so I feel like going and doing this and learning and taking some solace in the fact that even the folks that are expert or sort of like pointed out as experts or feel like they have leveled up, they get to a point where they, failure is a useful thing, right? That is one of those things that teaches you so much more than, than getting it right accidentally the first time. So this is going to be one of those things where I'm actually going to hit up a comment that we got earlier in the chat, which is, okay, well, why is building better, right, than studying exam questions? And that's going to take us into the first of a few things. And this is also going to hit us up on my kind of parking lot question that I took out of the parking lot in my next gen this week. So we actually did this. So for those of you guys who were in my class this week, I'm just going to say, like, this might be a little bit of a review for a little bit of this, but maybe we get to see it a second time. So we're going to do infinite, like, oh, look at that. I love it, right? We get to go through the whole MC Escher view. Let's actually get into what we want to do here, which is go in and start messing with stuff. And so one of the things, and I'm actually going to pull out my StreamYard chat here. And so fellow profs, please keep me apprised if there's something I'm missing. It's not quite like Zoom, y'all, where I get to kind of see everything all the time, everywhere at once, despite our cool title card this week. A thing that people have often ask, well, actually, let me go around the room, guys and ladies and gentlemen and everybody else. What's the first thing people ask you when you go to teach a class like this and you tell them that there's an exam? What's like the first question that pops up?
The first one for me is, are there practice exams?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the first one that they always ask. Where are the practice exams? Or can you give us any practice exams? And I'm like, well, there's stuff out there. I remember when I first started with ServiceNow, Jeremy, who was my boss at the time, he's like, Christian, can you see if there's brain dumps and test dumps out there? For those of you who don't know what a brain dump or test dump are, those are people who try to take the exams, memorize the questions and answers, and then stick it somewhere. I don't advocate these, nor do I promote these, but they do exist. And I had to show Jeremy the one that I found at the very beginning, back in the day, was Quizlet.com. If Ben, you'd be so kind to open that. Yep. I don't recommend it because a lot of the questions and answers can be wrong. I don't know what the percentage is. I have not gone back to verify and validate those, but they have flashcards, especially if you're a terrible test taker like me. Ben said 3 times, but I know of other, and I'm not going to name names, other people within our cadre that have failed it up to 6 times. So right. Just bear that in mind. Not everyone's a great test taker, but these Quizlet brain dumps and test dumps, please, for the life of whoever, make sure you do your due diligence and check your answers and the questions and answers, because a lot of times they're wrong. And so
I love that. Like that, because that gets right into like Mario's question. What's the first question on the exam? Or like first, like what's on the exam? What can we see? And actually, I can give you an official answer. Armand, like, you know where I'm going with this, right? Like, we're going to go over here. We're going to go and look because there's a way that we can find it, yeah? You know that I could just go click on here.
And while he's doing that, please never pay for any of these practice exams. It's not worth your money. Do not do that. Please go through the labs again, and because it really tests your navigational experience, meaning how well you navigate the lab.
So, yeah, we're just going to play that. Like, we're just going to play Admiral Akbar as many times as we can.
It's a trap! It's a trap!
And this actually is right to a great article that's on LinkedIn that Robert Fedoruk, who was one of the people who had posted out there, posted a fantastic article about the topic of brain dumps. And there's some great feedback out there if you want to take a quick look on that topic or his. But to his point and Ben's, building is a huge way to learn. But also when looking at these pieces, these resources, it's the research that we're really paying people who get certified to do. I'm not paying you to come work for me because you answered 40 questions on a test. I'm
Right.
paying you to work for me because I have some question that I need you to go look up or figure out. So if you can look through guides like the one that Ben's showing you, or as Christian pointed out, if there are resources, to go back and double check those resources to find where are the right answers to those questions, you're really training yourself in the true skill that you need to go beyond the certification and right to the job in the interview. And Robert Fedoruk makes such an amazing point on this in that chain. He talks about the idea that, you know, even if you memorized every brain dump there were, and even if every one of them was correct, which is then you're really not going to do as well in the interview when they say, well, so tell us about this issue. And that's what they're looking for. So looking at those questions and looking up the resources is a great way to look. And this is awesome. So Ben, you've pulled up the exam specification, and that's really what's on the test, right?
That is, and you can kind of see like where the different parts fall. And I think one thing that we can do, and for those of you guys who have heard me do this shtick before, again, this is the Golden Girls Greatest Hits. I'm going to kind of go through some of the ways you can use this exam blueprint to sort of figure out, well, what do I do with said brain dumps? Because you know what? Some of those things are interesting data points that you might want to explore, because they're going to be an interesting prompt. They're kind of like the little secret, right? For you to kind of go and level up a little bit and figure out how to use some of that content to do research, check yourself before you wreck yourself, and actually do some practice, right? So we're going to take this information, and I'm going to give a big shout out here for this next piece to Mr. Chuck Tabasi, who as usual has us covered on some of these content pieces here. And we're going to use a game, right? We're going to use a game that I think most of us know and love. And in fact, let me stop sharing my screen for just a second and just do the sort of special effect. Hopefully I don't get dinged super hard on the content engine. We're just going to do the thing because, you know what? It's the 8-week special thing. And I'm just like, you know what? I've been waiting for weeks and weeks and weeks to pull this out of my hat. And we're just going to do the following. We're going to do all the lights.
This is Jeopardy!
Right? And I'm going to stop that before we get dinged for copyright infringement because I was watching the timer. And we're going to do the board fill and get us back into the main content here. And we're actually going to figure out how to use a really cool little thing that came out. And thank you guys for the shout outs in the chat too.
That's great, Thomas. Yeah.
Huge like extra stars for this, because definitely do not pay for any of those practice exams. They are a scam. And like, let me ask you guys and babies and gentle thems, why somebody would be putting some of that stuff out. It might be to take quick advantage of a desire to get better at these exams. But think about competitors too. This used to happen on the MCSE exams. This used to happen on the CCNA exams. I see some heads nodding from the fellow professors who have gone through this. Competitors will put competing false brain dumps out into the exam ecosystem to make it so that it's harder to get certified. So don't trust them. Do not trust them.
I have to add, that has been a ploy with a lot of these brain dumps and
We
test
don't need to name any of them.
I'm not going to name any, but just be aware that you should never pay for this. And you guys all know that the test is simply true and false. I mean, no true and false, no fill in the blank, no essay. It's just multiple choice, as Ben showed in the blueprint, and multiple select. So if you know anything about test taking strategies, and this might be a little bit too much information, but I'm going to give it to you anyway. We take a pool of questions. I think there's 180. Correct me or keep me honest, Ben and Sean. There's like 180 questions.
We actually redact that statement. We don't know how many are in the question bank.
Okay, well, there's definitely a question bank. There is a question bank. But out of that, they pick 60, and you have 90 minutes. And here's the thing. If you know anything about test taking strategies, they regurgitate a lot of the same questions. So if you read all 60 questions, a question, let's say question number 30, could give you a hint about question number 10. So take your time and read the questions and answers carefully. That's just a simple test taking strategy. I'm sorry, I want to give you more before I have to bow out, but in any event, be aware that there are ploys out there or conspiracies to get you to fail, because they want you to say, oh, ServiceNow is too hard, I'm going to go over to the other competitor or whatever. So bear that in mind.
For sure. And thank you, Profo, which I'm still super envious of that tagline, because man, I was like trying out Prof B and I was like, it doesn't sound quite right, but man, Prof O is legit. You're just gonna have to sit on that and own that. And I'm super glad that you were able to make it and hang out with us for a little bit. I'm going to take us into a thing that Chuck did a while back and a lot of you guys who are coming into the space probably know who Mr. Tomasi is. I'm gonna close this out here real quick and then share some screen stuff here. Yeah, and this is also, like, before we even get to some of the other stuff, consider marking questions for review. Huge level up moment for going in and taking a test. Do the ones that you know first. Let's mark that again. Let's say it again. Do the ones that you know first. Just fly through and just read through the entire exam, all the questions. If you've got any gimmies, just do them. Just do the gimmies. That is such a huge one. And it might not be a gimme because it's easy. It might be a gimme because it stuck with you. Yeah? That's a big deal. Also, didn't mean to pull this up. I wasn't working on any coding. This is a Hacker Typer, by the way. This is a little gag I was doing earlier. But what I want to do is actually talk about this one. I'm going to put this into the chat here as I'm monitoring all of the streams, because suddenly I taste purple and I see all the things with the various monitors that I've got. And even now I'm still like, oh, and let's see. I'm going to post it into the Streamlabs comments, and maybe one of the other profs can put it into, because it'll only post to YouTube. LinkedIn, please take note and let me post back into the chat stream. Maybe at some point, so you guys can
I'm
that.
posting these notes back into LinkedIn, Ben, and I'm summing up some of the notes that we had. For starters, just that the certification and free window has been extended for exam dumps and Quizlets and the like. Beware for any variety of reasons. They're often false. And then for points that Christian brought up as well, study tips to remember: try to go through all of the questions to review, and when reviewing, even whether you're looking at other sample information, to look to the resources and find the info there. And as someone else pointed out, build every day.
The more you know. All right, so we're going to actually take this and we're going to build, right? So you can take this and go into a PDI. And if you take,
as in personal developer instance, by the way.
Right. Yeah, so if we went to developer servicenow.com, go and check out a developer instance, we can go grab this update set, which is going to add, and sort of like they do on cooking shows, once you import this particular update set, and you can go back to some of our previous episodes to find those. We'll put some links in the show notes and some directives. Once you get there, you'll have actually, what's cool is that particular post link that I sent actually has a walkthrough of how to set this up entirely. And you'll have a whole section here where you'll have all of your stuff. And let me and the answer is, there we go. The answer is Ben can't type today. There we go. There we go. Thank you, Armel. All right, so once we've got that thing set up, we're going to be able to see that we've got this whole little game here, and we need some cards. And I was going to say, if you wanted to be added to stream, I could put you back on. I thought maybe you wanted to be off.
So one
No,
of the
it's
coolest.
okay. It's okay. Now it's better. There was some issue with my camera. That's okay.
Okay. All good. All good. All right. So
I just was throwing in one of the coolest things that Ben just did was he used his developer ServiceNow instance or his PDI to bring in an application, right? And this is where you brought in Jeopardy. It's an application that Chuck built that lets you help practice study tests and questions, right?
well, I didn't use a PDI in this instance. I actually did this little demo a little bit earlier today. I'm just gonna lie or like admit that due to the magic of TV, we have like pre-prepped this, right? This is like when you do the cooking shows. Guy Fieri does not do this live all the time. And while I don't have the spiked hair, I've still got the production capabilities to do this ahead of time. So I actually did this in a class earlier today where we brought this whole system in, and now I've got this app that says Jeopardy, right? And what do we know about Jeopardy? There is a question and answer format, but we actually say that there's an answer, and then you have to figure out the question. But in order to do that, you need to have a source for some of these flashcards. And you know what? I'm actually going to nuke all of them. I'm going to go, and here's a fun thing. I'm actually going to go to this table that we took a long time figuring out all of this stuff. I'm going to nuke it. I'm going to nuke it. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to use this little DB object. I'm going to do a thing that we did in an early episode where we used some of those shortcuts. And this is like one of those ways that I can go to this table, and this sysdb object is the same as me going to the dictionary, or actually the table of tables. And we've gone into the tables. There we go. System definition tables. And we've gone to what we call from the naming side, right, which is different from the label. For those of you guys taking the test, the name is what the system calls it. The label is the human readable name. You'll see that a lot. And in fact, in future tests, they will often try to trick you with that. They'll try to give you the label and then they'll put brackets on it, right? They'll put brackets on it and you'll go like, wait, that's not the real table. And so you'll have to remember that whenever you see name, that's the system name. And I just copied that system name from this URI up at the top. We talked about this a little bit in previous episodes too, which again, I will put some cliff notes here. We've basically got a label that says, oh, card. And here's the actual system name that's being referred to. I'm going to go into this table list here. I'm going to nuke everything. Everything. Right? So this is one of those things where I might go and say, one man needs to be able to import some sort of flashcards into a table. He's only got one table, but there are already flashcards in there, so he needs to remove them for the show. He forgot to do so before the show. There's only one way in via sysdb object and one way out. And that's hitting the delete all of them. So I'm actually going to go in here and I'm going to delete all the records in this table here. We're going to get in there and we're going to go delete all of them. This is the thing that ServiceNow doesn't usually want you to do. So it's asking me. This is one of those rare opportunities. Saying like, oh, cool, let's do that. Did I? I did. Yes, I did. Because it was one of those options where it's like, everybody was like, well, we're not quite sure what happened here. So we've now deleted all the records in this table. And now we need to go ahead and bring them back in. So yeah, apologies to my next gen folks. When we started doing this morning, I was like, holy cow, this is actually a super useful little component here. And then we're going to get back into it. But like, you're like, okay, cool. So now we need some cards. Here is my super, there's actually two ways that we're going to do this. My super suggestion for studying for the exam. And are you guys ready for this? My suggestion for studying for the exam is making flashcards. And you're like, wait, what? All of you right now are just like, what did he just say? I thought we were going to learn something cool right now. You said that we're going to study by making flashcards? What is that about? And actually, we are. But we're going to make flashcards in a special way. We're going to make them inside the platform using this particular option. Right? So if you're going to study, loop your friends in additionally to study, but we're going to actually make some here by let's get back into the content by using Chuck's cool app here. And we're going to take some of our content from the dreaded Quizlet, right? And I know that a lot of you are like, oh, we know Quizlet. It's not cool. Like, no, thank you. And I'm looking for my audience boo. Right, because there might be like all kinds of bad questions in here. But, and also like, oh, somebody did this like 18 gajillion years ago, checked for London, what is that? These were made in like 2016, yucky. And you're thinking like, that's okay, totally fine. You know why? Because you can take this and it's a learning opportunity. You can take this and if I'm logged in, I can just export them. Hold on. Export these things. Yes. And Timothy, yes, we can correct them. And can I just, for a minute, just go like,
Well played.
because that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to go and correct them. And I'm going to give the other profs a second here to expound on this, because this is a huge deal. What does correcting somebody else's work do for us, my friends? We've all learned this.
Oh gosh, it teaches us the advantage of troubleshooting. It also makes us sharper with our own mistakes. Few things can really teach you more than fixing somebody else's stuff.
Ivana, what do you think? I know you're big on the apprenticeship model.
+1 on this one. I mean, it's again, it's what you expect from repeating again and again, right? So it's going to work, in my opinion.
Ermal, what do you think?
I think sometimes I also learn new stuff when I try to correct certain studies wrong, right? I try to look it up because I need to be sure that everything fits in correctly. So basically, you learn sometimes something new, and that's always a good thing. So as John said, yeah, troubleshooting always.
Yeah. Can I share, like, can I be real honest with you guys and everybody here in the room? Like, we'll share a secret. Maybe nobody will let us know. It's all safe here. Nobody will say anything. Nobody will share this on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitch, Twitter, all the places, all the socials, all the Facebooks.
We'll keep this just between us, then
Just
the
between us.
2,000 plus or 5 to 10 that may watch this in some time. Just
right. So here's the thing. Oftentimes, I won't know the answer going into a session. And in fact, one of the reasons, one of my mentors and one of the people that I've taken a lot and learned a lot from, Miss Diane Cunningham, big shout outs to her. One of the reasons we put new instructors on a class like ServiceNow Fundamentals that have no idea what they're going to be asked. What is the reason we do that? Right? And sometimes people get frustrated, but we hire new instructors because they're good at what? Right. And Williams kind of got like a great point in here, like troubleshooting solidifies information. This is the model of how teaching others helps you get better, right? This is huge. We put noobs instructors, they're good at being instructors. They've been instructors for however many years. We don't put brand new, like green instructors. They've instructed something before. And Sean and I talk a lot about this in various places. We put them there and we make them start learning ServiceNow. And then like you get all the questions. Yeah. Well, and it's definitely one of the reasons teaching is so much fun. For sure. You get all the questions. What are some of the craziest questions you guys have gotten in the past? And what did you figure out? Like, I'm sure there's things, right?
Sometimes for me, it has been like small things that you don't notice immediately, like a button that you usually see there, but a UI action that you usually see there, but don't click, a related link, something that you just know that is there, but you haven't used. So someone might ask, "Hey, what's that? What's the purpose of that link?" Right? And you don't know the answer to that. You start looking it up, you learn it yourself, and you try to answer that question. So basically, you have learned a new thing. I love that part. That's what I do during my classes. I try to engage as much as I can and try to have as many questions as possible, because that's how I also learn myself new things.
I love that answer. And if you guys haven't already guessed, one of the things I'm really trying to do is encourage you guys to teach other people, right? So if you're learning this, you're going to try and take an exam. One of the things that has always helped me more than anything is to try and teach somebody that doesn't care. There's nothing on the line for them. They might be 5. I'm still going to try to explain them to a 5-year-old, right? And Ivano, I know you've got some thoughts on this too, and I want to give you a chance to kind of speak out. You've taught me so much, I'm just going to say. And you've done so by just being really humble, but also building and then some of this, right? So what's one of the things that you've done over the years teaching somebody?
Well, that's interesting. I would say that I mean, on my side, it was probably everything started with customers, because I was a consultant before, and I've been a consultant for almost 10 years. So, well, you teach them
Huge point.
the platform. You try to make them understanding how things should be for them using the platform, maybe without bending the technology. Technology
Ooh,
should support them, and they should rely on it without changing things. So that's the main thing. Trying to make them aware of the platform and accept the platform as it is.
so you're like kind of bending like water and trying to find like interesting solutions, and yeah, I like that.
Sort of. Interesting, I don't know. In some cases, pointless maybe is better, but that's okay.
Sometimes you can lead a horse to water, right? That's true. That's true. Sean, I saw you sort of chuckle here a second. I'm going to show folks how to do this import on the deep dive here in a second, but I know that you've got thoughts about this, sir.
First, I have to come off mute, I guess.
That's true.
I think one of the things that I just wanted to point out, and this actually ties to a question that was thrown into the LinkedIn stream that I think is fantastic. Steve Peak brings up the idea, and Steve, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right, just as talking about the idea that in some organizations you're asked to prep for multiple certs at once. And I know we're talking on the troubleshooting and fixing and pieces that we learn, but when you have that, and trainers have that as well, we ramp on maybe different classes. But what I've always tried to think of is I want to try to loop content into cohesive and logical connection and stories. So I'm not one, I possibly could practice on things that are outside my scope, but I want to be able to tell a story that has real experience and real relevance. So I focus on areas that connect to pieces that I already know. And so making those connections with things that I know and knew before would be probably the big thing that I think of. And like Ivano, being able to tie even the slightest bit of personal experience in to the pieces that I cover or teach, I think is a huge connector for me.
Well, thank you, sir, for that. And I was going to say this all kind of ties back into just, again, if we're going to try to get us into a theme, right? Because as radio TV professionals, trying to figure out how to bring this back and tie it into the theme. The theme is that we've got this thing in front of us. We've got some requirements. We got to figure out how to tackle it. And Sean, as always, like really just killing it with kind of all of the summation of all the things all the time. It's one of the things I'm really glad for. Let's try to figure out how to bring this into a tight little bow and take some of the things that we might see out there in the world. And maybe we've got, an exam dump, or maybe somebody gives you like, here's some flashcards, right? And maybe it's completely innocuous, right? Maybe it's even your instructor, but they haven't checked it since 2016 or 2017 or since London, right? And they're like, well, you look at them and that's part of the deal. So when you go to Quizlet, one of the beautiful things here is that you can take somebody else's brain dump. And mind you, sometimes it is not, I will definitely say it is not it's not a negative pattern, and it's not necessarily like what we used to call malicious intent. Sometimes, for me at least, when I first took the CSA exam, when I first took somebody else's course, I was making these flashcards in real time. I was not an instructor at the time. These were just mine. Here's my thoughts. I actually took somebody else's questions as a base, and then I started to modify them. And that's going to be a big part of this. We're going to take somebody else's kind of base questions and figure out, one, where do my notes fit in? And two, how can I address or attack some of the things that I don't know that I don't know? And so you can look at some of the questions in this set, and there's 94 of them. And you're like, holy cow. We can go in and look at all of these and say, let's export them. And then Quizlet is like,
Hey, listen.
we don't do CSV. We don't do any of these things. If you're going to do anything, brah, you need to figure out what you want. And you might be thinking to yourself as a student of ServiceNow, like the very first time you've never done tech before, you're like, what are all these options? I don't know. By the way, true story, I think a lot of these options for the export actually come back down to, anybody remember the learning management system that was everywhere all the time, all at once?
Yep. I remember.
So, yep, it's kind of in the same format. We're not going to name it. It's still out there. It's open source. I actually used it myself and ran a program on it. But what we're going to do is we're going to copy this text, right? And we've made it tab delimited. And between rows, we're going to create a new line. What that does, however, is this makes a mess of some of the data. That's okay. Because what we do, and we figured this out earlier, thank you to all my, because I hadn't had to do this in a long time. Thank you to all my next gen students who were sitting along, who asked this question and were maybe sorry earlier today when I thought it was going to be like a quick walk in the park. And I was like, no problem. No problem. I do that often. So let me just, and you know what? Actually, I say yes to a lot of things, and I'm still not sorry. I'm sorry, not sorry. Because what I'm going to do is I've copied all that text, and I'm just going to go paste, right? We can do this one or two ways. We can take this as it was, and what you see here is we've delimited between the tab all of our rows. What that unfortunately does, however, is that anytime anybody accidentally hit the tab in any of these cards, for whatever reason, doesn't matter, it's going to end up as another row. I'd say the safest is to use comma. So we're going to copy this, and between rows, we're going to do a new line. This, by the way, is something you're going to have to fight with every Quizlet. If you're using a free account, you do not get XML, you do not get JSON, you do not get CSV, you do not pass Go, you do not collect $200. You're going to have to go in here and choose comma and new line, and then copy all the text and put it into a text file. This is great. I'm actually going to say that this is a thing that allows you to figure out how data works. Any of my other profs, welcome to hop in here and tell me why that is.
Well, before I hop in on that, I will mention at some point we want to bring Christian's hanging out just to say, I wanted to say bye when we get a chance on the next moment.
Woo! I was going to say, like, Christian, thank you so much.
He's kind of hanging out in the off frame, I think.
All right, let me switch back to stop screen here for just a second and give Christian, thank you so much for just popping in. We've got
all right. I just wanted to say thank you guys, and unfortunately I have to get to another event, but it's been a pleasure. And if you guys can, like I said, I think the biggest takeaway for the exam, I think the biggest thing is that really go through all the labs again, because if you know where to go to navigate, to create an ACL, to go and create a group and then add roles to that group and then bring users into that group. Once you understand the navigational experience, that's what the exam's really going to test you on. And then I've already mentioned the test taking strategies and the other professors, great advice from Sean and Ben, and also this other technique, which I'm going to steal from you, Ben. I didn't even realize that existed. So again, make sure you guys prepare, clear your head, all those really good test taking strategies. And even if you fail it the first time, I think what they've done, and Sean and Ben can confirm this because it's been so long, they actually tell you what areas of the learning domains
that's a huge one.
Did better in, because I didn't have that when I took the exam. So I thought, did I pass it by one, or did I pass it by a ton, or did I fail by one or fail it by a ton? Now you have some sort of idea and scope. So that's what I'm going to leave you guys with. And again, to my other professors, Sean, Ben, this is amazing. Love to be back in a future episode if you guys continue to do so. And have a great evening. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Christian.
Thanks, sir.
Well played.
All right. So, as we were saying here, and great points on that note, I'm going to say that, yeah, the big deal here is both understanding what is being asked of you, and yes, that it is a huge, huge, huge moment. They give you percentages now. It used to just be a coin, like it felt like a coin flip. I'm going to say, like, it was like you either passed or you failed and you didn't know what you did. On the CSA and a few other limited examples, you can get the percentages of where you did well and did not do well. I'm not sure, and maybe you guys can correct me. I believe it's only for a limited number of the exams. It might be all of them now. And this is where I'm totally willing to just be like completely wrong. So, but if they are all of the exams now, that's awesome. But I do know on the CSA, they definitely do. They tell you, where did you do well and where do you need some more help? All right, so getting back to where we were. We've taken this copy pasta, right? We're going to take it now, and you can take this for anything, right? Like any of these Quizlets, any of these exam dumps, and we're going to use this as cannon fodder. And we're going to get to the bottom of this mystery, because the truth really is out there. We're going to take this stuff and we are going to put it into some sort of format that we can then use to figure out what the heck we're doing. So I've done a couple things here. I've done one version, and we did this a little bit earlier today, where I've pasted all of the stuff from, and let me pull this macro UI script here down, in a tab delimited format, and then another one in this comma separated format. And do you guys want to know a cool thing that happens if you comma separate stuff in a text file? We're totally making a quiz thing. We are making a quiz thing. So what we're doing right now is we're taking this and we've put it in CSV, and it might be a hot mess. Actually, a total hot mess. I already know it's a hot mess because I tried this live in an earlier session and totally bombed. Well, actually, I didn't bomb. My next gen people, please let me know that I learned something. We're refining today. And what we're going to do is we're going to call this cards CSV. Ivana, you've got some thoughts. I saw you smiling. I saw it.
So we say that if I have to pick a character to do the separation, I would pick something strange, not a comma.
Oh man, but then I'd have to go and fix all of my other.
Because if I'm right and I understand what you want to try, so you want to try to format the Excel using the CSV thing. Again, if in a text you have a comma because they are very fond of grammar, then you are in trouble because you're going to have something cut down into strange pieces. So usually you, I mean, in the past I did all this stuff. So
So I'm gonna say
again,
yes, and so we come with solutions because you know that there's going to be a problem right here, right? So how do we tell? This is a great point, and I love you for that, sir. How do we tell this to then delimitate if we export? Because maybe you got some. Right.
there is on the left side says the last checkbox says custom. So I think you can decide to put a custom character.
Oh, I like that. So maybe we just do instead, we go for between lines and ampersand, which I learned at lunch today when I had to go look it up again on Google. So I appreciate you calling that to my attention. So when I would spend a good bit of time in Japan for working for PlayStation, sometimes we would ask Gugure-san for help. And that's one of them. I appreciate you bringing that up. So yeah, we could use a custom row separator. And unless I know, if I go and look, and this is honestly, friends, garbage in, garbage out, we look at our data, we try to examine it. And if I were to do a control F, or right, I would do a control for ampersand, we got 0. So maybe we found our fix. Hey, that's fun. So let's go here and copy text now. Ivano, sir, you are a scholar and a gentleman. And I love that you got it like that, because I was going to have to bring up the fact that I had to Google this during the lunch break today, because I'd totally forgotten about that point. But clearly you have done plenty of data transforms over the years. So now I've got this thing, but now I can't save it as CSV. Right? And I like this too. Can I tell you guys what I used to use instead of XYZ? I used to use triple question mark exclamation point. because I would only ever see it in comic books. I would never see it in live data, because the only time I see that are in emails when somebody's going bonkers.
Yep, and I would use ZZZ for the same because I thought no one would add it.
Oh, it's a good one. All right. So, but the problem is now we can't save it as a CSV, right? So what do we got to do? Unfortunately, what we got to do is we got to save it over here as a text file, but that's not going to stop us. Ain't no stopping us now. We on the move. All right. Because we can go in. And what's another way that we can import something into an Excel spreadsheet, since Excel is our friend sometimes? We got the Blanche energy today. What's a way that we could do this, right? There is a way. I know somebody on here is probably going to guess. You guys in my cohort this morning, shh. We already did this. My other profs. Ivano, I know you know. I see you smiling over there. Like, I see you totally smiling.
There is an option to copy special, and then you'll be allowed to decide the separator. If I'm not wrong, I don't like Excel. It's a nightmare. Never used properly. I'm a mess on that side. So.
I appreciate that, sir. I have so much respect. I have so much respect for your skills. I'm actually going to import the text file as is as a TXT, and there's like an import function, but it's wonky, right? It's only once I've actually saved, and I actually had to do this 3 times live the first time because I totally forgot. Because usually I'm working in like Oracle or SQL or something like that. I'm not having to deal with some of this, which is I honestly think is way more common. And so I'm actually going to save this now as, you know what? In homage to the chat, we're going to call it Blanche.txt. I like the little pointer there. All right. And we're going to import this, and we're going to import Blanche.txt. And we're going to get data. We're going to get that data. And we're going to fan ourselves because it's so hot in here. And it is delimited, right? Like, who chooses fixed lab? Like, no. I'm just going to tell you guys, unless you're working with like an agent system, Lotus Notes, you won't see this very often. However, you still do see it in like other databases, but you at that point, you probably should not be using Excel to do transforms. Just saying. So we're going to use delimited, not Dementor, which several people in my class suggested today, which was excellent. I was like, I'm totally going to call it a Dementor because it definitely torments me. And what we're going to do is we're going to go, instead of tab, we're going to say the text qualifier we used was other, and it was ampersand. Because who uses ampersand these days, my friend? Actually, holy cow. This is like, man, if I had more time, I'm going to have to stop myself. Do you guys all know what the little hand is in text? There's a whole thing with like the little finger pointing. That actually is a glyph in most Unicode formats. I'm just going to leave that there, and we're going to get to it later. So now we can go next, and boom, we can actually back. Delineators, text qualifier, yep, space, comma. Oh my God, like emojis.
Yep.
We could totally use emojis. Oh my God, I was leaving money on my brand.
The irony here is, to keep us from going too far down the rabbit hole, I go, we've got the conversion to the spreadsheet, and I guess that makes me the person who's always trying to keep us on target. Makes me
we want to
sound
go
a lot like Dorothy.
Awesome.
I'm always the guy doing the B. Arthur bit. Now Blanche.
Oh, all right. So we're gonna put it in the sheet here. So boom, Oh, that's cool. All right, so we got this nonsense happening here. Oh, but this is a mess. I probably should mess with this a little bit in a different way because I totally didn't do it right. And actually, my card CSV was better in this context because I totally just crank through that. But here's, oh no, that's the, yikes. LOL. Let's not save that. My CSV. Here's what I was looking for, but not in numbers. And you guys are like wincing as Ben totally flips this one again. And by the way, here's how you become a professional out in the world. You just keep trying. Success is 99% showing up. So here's like a CSV version of this, right? And you'll notice that, to Ivano's point, sometimes you end up with some blanks. But I was going to argue, actually, because this is how I rolled earlier, that if you have the blanks, that's actually one more opportunity to learn something. Right? No? All right. But there's another thing that we have a problem with. So we were doing the roles, and I think I didn't do the, oh man. So each of the columns now is a question, and we've somehow flubbed this. But that's okay. Let's do the CSV, and we'll put that in the show notes too.
You wanna try something? So this is my
Yeah,
suggestion.
let's do it.
Under data section of the Excel.
Oh,
So there is an
the
option.
man who hates Excel.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you should be able to see something that says text 2 columns somewhere on the right. Yeah. So there should be, if you have everything in just one line, allows you to cut down, but you have to select one of the columns. Okay. Try.
Okay.
There goes. So if you have like questions all together in just one line, you should be try that. So you see that delimited thing. So if you have a delimiter, that is going to cut down into. And this helps a lot. It's less funky than everything else. Maybe it's going to work, maybe it won't, but you know.
Let's see if we can, because this is in the other one. So let's go back to book 3 here, which was the one where we were like, oh, this is a hot mess. I love that. So we're learning so much today.
I feel like this is such a cool thing for anyone to know that you could download Chuck's Jeopardy app from Share and then import these.
And then import these. Yep, you could totally import these.
But I mean, noodle with it like you're doing right now is, I think, a great way to do exactly what Robert Fedoruk was talking about, or the rest of us. Gives you practice.
Sometimes you have to struggle, right? You have to like kind of mess with it. Oh, so if you did emoji plus comma, actually, this is a great question, and I have tried it. Yes, emoji plus comma still equals valid CSV, because what happens is when it gets to the CSV, it actually exports as an ISO character. And it just gives you the ISO character, regardless of whatever format you've got in plain text. But this whole issue here that I did, I think I actually exported or imported it to the wrong. I did my import wrong, which is fine. And I feel like this might be a Friday sort of conversation, because I delimited via ampersand, and I'm like, oh, snap. But let me just go back to my original, because I felt like the original was actually more useful from a learning perspective. So if you do just the copy and paste, and then you throw it into a text file, right? And then you import that as a CSV, open it up as CSV, right? So like, actually, let's go and minimize all of these guys for just a second, just to kind of give you guys the like, oof. Here's blanche.txt. Here is cards.txt, and here's cards.csv. If I just open up cards.csv, which we exported or saved from a text file, we can then open that back up in Excel, and Excel's like, oh, I see that it's comma separated, and it gives you this nonsense, right? At which point you can go, aha, if it's comma separated, then we can go, and let me minimize this, and open it back up and see that it is in 2 columns, right? Because you've got, and let me just nuke this for a minute, because this was from earlier. You've got column A and column B that you copied into your spreadsheet. Now, if you're going to use this as a data import, you still got to mess with this, right? You got to insert a row, and you got to tell the system that you've got column A is going to be the question in your import, and column B is going to be your answer. But these questions and these answers still suck, right? They're not good. They're from Quizlet or from Udemy or from wherever. What we can do is, as a function of importing them, this makes us stop and actually go through and clean up our data. And why is it so important that we clean up our data? Friends and neighbors, just going to ask.
Gigo, man. Garbage in, garbage out.
Absolutely. Do you pronounce it Gigo or Geigo?
I always did Gigo. How about you?
I was Geigo. And in fact, I use, see if I can find it. Here's my image that I always use, and I'm just going to share this here for a minute. Window. This is like what I always share when I do this talk about data, right? It's Oscar the Grouch, garbage in, garbage out, but I always say Geigo. Huh. Never thought about Gigo. Is this like GIF versus GIF?
Could be.
All right. One of my favorite t-shirts, by the way, I've actually purchased 2 of these a couple times. Not like I didn't like, so I personally put like the little text thing over here, but like, and if you guys couldn't guess, I definitely am a big fan of Diesel Sweeties with the pixel windows. All right, so we've got our stuff, right? We've got our data input here. We've got our cards, and this is, again, we're getting back to like, why is it better to build? Gotta build. So if we're going to build stuff, we got to have data to build with. And we could just be building this one at a time, but that's not fun, right? We want to try to use the power of the platform. So why not just take a bunch of existing questions and refine those like we have here? And by the way, if you're going to make a bunch of Quizlet questions, use the / as your comma in your answers. Just saying, that's what I've done since then. You'll note that some people have followed that, right? Instead of using a comma, because I knew that after the fact, rather than using comma.
Hey, Ben, speaking of refine, I want to bring in one of the comments that was brought up by Steele. And I'm going to ask Steele to throw it back into the chat because I think it's awesome. There's one other column in there that would be really, really awesome. And Steele, I'm going to ask you to throw that back in the chat if you're still on with us. Because he was talking about how he preps and studies. And one of the things he said for each of the questions, they should always, always, always have this one thing. So Steele, I'm checking the chat. I'm checking the feed and hoping you're throwing it in there.
Because we could do it here. We could do it here. Like we could throw a column in there.
Yep. And that's exactly what he was proposing.
Aha. So what if
I'm looking to see what comes up.
Which module?
Bingo. Which reference or resource? Where did that come from? Where did you find it?
Yep. Or which, yeah, okay, that's even better. Like, where did it come from?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought this tip was, and I begged him to put it in he didn't want to interrupt in the feed, and I went, ooh, please put that in because so many people would, there you go.
Nice.
Yeah. I can't think of a single thing you could do that's beyond prepping for just taking the test, because that's what preps you when you sit in an interview with someone who says, I'm not sure you know what you're talking about. Because when
Oh,
you've done what Steele's talking about, you just sound like you know, you've looked, and it just makes you, that much more experienced.
well, right, because you're not memorizing the answer. And I was just speaking to like studying for the test and like where in the book did you find this with the what module? But Steele's going above and beyond and saying like, where else did you research beyond that? And that's actually pretty cool. And that's a huge resource that I feel like maybe we need to cultivate as part of like our office hours. Like that's actually kind of a cool thing.
Yeah,
Right.
this is our 10x level up.
Holy cow. That's like a because that's a thing that we talk about all the time, right? Like we're like, oh, where do you go to answer this question? Where do you go to answer that question? What if we could have a Jeopardy for interviews? And I'm like, holy cow. Like this stuff
Ooh, that
all
would
the
be
way.
awesome.
Like that's crazy. Um, but I'm gonna throw it back to you guys. Is that cheating? I don't think so. What do you guys think? I got a Jeopardy. Like if I'm prepping for an interview and things are on the line, and somebody's like, you need to figure out like you need to be cool as a cucumber, and suddenly Sonic starts dying, and yet you remember that this one time you saw this resource, right? Like, is that a thing that you could do?
Well,
Ooh,
I love this idea. Think about how that sounds. Oh, I was working on this with someone and I found this on Docs. I don't remember the resource. I'll send that to you when the interview's done. I'll send
right?
that to you in a thank you note. Oh, we were talking about this.
Still
This
got a
is
pointer.
something I found. Yeah, I think that's huge.
And I love this. One of the hallmarks of getting a job done is knowing how to use your resources, right?
Yeah.
Talk about this a lot, a lot, a lot, a lot. Again, because the job is not just memorizing stuff because there's no one right answer. And honestly, like I feel like we're talking, I've got 4 folks in the panel here that know what it's like to start talking about the architectural level, right? As we move people into this, there's no one right answer. Sometimes it's about getting people ready to understand what it's like to go up against, and I love Mr. Rasso's comment there. I used to go up
Yeah.
against these all the time, and we do this in our expert programs. We put you up against a murder board, right?
Hmm.
Like, we don't call it that, right? We don't call it necessarily the murder board, but that's kind of what it is, right? It's kind of like this notion of like you getting ready to be up on the line to do the thing, and you still have to be cool under pressure. Yeah, and I like that too. Like it does engage a different part of your brain. We're looking for pointers. We're looking for how to research. We're looking how to be get into the right place. I do want to tie it back to test prep though, because I know we kind of leveled up even beyond in this class. I thought this was just going to be a straight up like Golden Girls best of episode.
Well,
I'll
we're
tell
going to
you what.
bring those right into that column, right? That you're going to import. So we have references and resources.
Oh, I like that. So we can use it for later. Oh, that's cool. But maybe we don't make it mandatory. Where
And
did
then we
this
can
come
look it
from?
up.
Oh, I like that. So we maybe extend some of that table information. I love that. Um, I was thinking initially of a cheat here because if you look at and here's the thing too, like when you're doing a data import, and you know this from doing your fundamentals class, to know thy data is to know thyself. And in 1,000 data imports, you will never be defeated. Right? I think Sun Tzu said that. Pretty sure. And when you go in there and look, maybe not this one. Here we go. You look at this particular table and you're like, I'm going to do a new card. Cool. What do we got? We got number, we got answer, we got question, we got difficulty, and we got category. Unfortunately, there's no where did this come from reference field, but you know what? I like the idea of adding it. So y'all know what we could do. We could just go form layout or form design, add that option so that when we go to import it later, we can still store it, even though it's not going to be part of our Jeopardy question, because I still like the idea of going and leveling up Chuck's app here. Because the app was just designed to test your trivia knowledge. But what if it also made you better at ServiceNow? I feel like that might be kind of a big deal. So this is a good question. I would say, Thomas, to that point, I want to throw myself at whatever alt like immediately. Mostly because I'm terrified of exams.
Hmm.
I have failed my own exams that I have written for other people. I have failed because I panic. So if you feel like you're in a good spot where you have started to absorb some of the information, I feel like it is worthwhile going and testing yourself against that knowledge set just to see where you're at, right? I feel like that's a big deal, right? And I love this too. Travis has got the whole thing, like, know where to find the answers. You don't know the answer to everything. I don't know the answer to everything. I know where I can go to find maybe somebody to answer something. So if I can speak intelligently to that, that's a huge deal. So if I'm going to edit that section in Jeopardy here, if I need to add, what do heck did
Can I
go
answer
ahead,
Thomas's question in the
please do.
meanwhile?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great.
So it's about Tokyo, almost there. It will be out in October, but this is my 2 cents on this. Don't be afraid to wait for taking the exam. I don't think there will be like huge changes in the questions or the answers and the topics, because ServiceNow fundamental is like a basic class. Of course, if you are planning to take other type of exams, maybe things can be slightly different, but we're talking always about a very small amount of questions related with the new capabilities, functionalities. So I think it's not going to impact you if you have to take the CSA exam, in my opinion. I don't know what the other professors think about it, but again, take your time, study, and then do it. In my opinion, is not going to affect you.
I think that's a fair point, and I think that knowing what you know is always a good idea, right? I'm kind of a fail fast and break stuff kind of guy. I have done this my whole life where I've just like, I'm just going to give it a shot and try it. And I've broken some teeth along the way. I like your approach though, like where I think it is worth feeling confident in knowing what you know. Um, and honestly, the exam is a test of your ability to administer and care and feed and kind of bring up this instance. And I think that that will continue on into the future, right? Like that's no matter what the version is, no matter what we do, that's always the intent, right? Like you look at the intent of the learning objectives. You look at what is this exam attempting to prove, right? Because honestly, I think that standardized tests are not great as a metric, but they're what we have, right? They're what we have to measure that metric. And what is it trying to do? It's trying to prove to other people that you know what you're doing in this realm. And if we look at the specific things on the exam blueprint, that is not really going to change over time, right? You're supposed to be able to figure out over time, like how to keep this thing running, how to go about like day-to-day work, how to do performance, how to figure out how to troubleshoot, right? That's a lot of what this exam is like trying to get you to do. And those are the things that are the hardest to figure out. And no matter what comes in the future, I think that Ivana's totally right? This is one of those areas that we're really trying to if you need to feel confident, if this is like your one shot, don't waste your shot. But honestly, if you've got a freebie, do the freebie. Like just try to give it a shot and see what you got.
Yeah, I'm only going to jump to add one other piece, and that being that. So it's kind of interesting because you have two different points of view. Ivano's kind of saying, hey, there probably will be relatively few new questions that are Tokyo specific. And that's true whether we're talking
Yeah.
Rome to San Diego or San Diego to Tokyo and so on. Usually, particularly with administration, we're talking platform, and platform functionality should maintain fairly similar across versions. So taking it later and taking the time to study, if you're concerned and really need to prep, that's fine. On the other hand, to Ben's school of thought, taking it soon and getting it out of the way, also fine. One little thing to add, and this to make sure that everyone's aware of, and we talked about this in a previous episode, but it's worth mentioning. Once you are certified, there are the Delta certifications. Now, that means if you were to get certified in San Diego and we transition over to Tokyo, you have to take an update Delta exam. Now, the thing about the Delta exams, and just to be clear about this as well, the Delta exams are somewhere between 1 and 8 questions, and they're open book.
They are open book.
And in fact, they're exactly for the purpose that we were just talking about. So often you get folks like myself or Ivano introduced as, both of us have been here 12, almost, I've been here 11 and a half years, almost 12 years. Ivano's been here 12 years. We need to keep folks like us from relying on old technology. So they create the Delta exams to talk about what's changed. And it's to make sure that people like us aren't building on old technology. So it's actually a fairly good thing to have the deltas because it makes sure that everybody stays current. They're open-ended tests. So unfortunately, just to sum the Thomas, to your question, there are pluses and minuses on both. If you were to take San Diego, you get it done and out of the way. As soon as you do, you're liable to have 90 days to take a delta, but that delta is open notes. On the other hand, if you really feel like you want to prep a little extra because it makes sure that everybody stays. Oops, and then take it in Tokyo, knowing that there won't be a whole lot of things that are unique to Tokyo, probably not when we talk about the system administration level. When we talk product specific, it's a little different.
All right. I was trying to manage all of this.
Sorry. Yeah, I wanted to grab that one just because, again, Steele had brought out, I thought that was a great point to mention. Don't forget that if they take it ahead, they have to take the deltas. And I thought that was worth making sure that we knew.
Well, right. And once you get over the hump, like the deltas, as we've been saying, are really about just trying to make sure that you're not just like cruising and you're not phoning it in. I think we've all understood what it's like to try and phone something in, or when somebody's phoning it in. Like, I did this a long time ago and I'm fine. I don't need to look out this stuff. It's great.
Guilty.
Right? Totally done it too. And I used to feel like I was phoning it in all the time, even when maybe I was doing a little bit extra, but not like doing performative like office presence, right? And I think some of us also feel like that when, post pandemic, we definitely need to avoid that. Plus the thing that, like Sean was saying, we need to make sure that we're going in and looking at the stuff. We need to go and look at the changes and not take those for granted. I have been as guilty as anybody of just being like, I'm going to roll into this and it's no problem. And I cannot begin to tell you how many times I have eaten it and broken my teeth, Steve-O style, on my face, just being like, oops. Like, I'm just doing the thing and I'm like, oh man, that was not good. And yeah, no, I mean, we've all been there. And sometimes you get a couple extra lives where you have an opportunity to do that. And you're like, oh gosh, sorry, I should go take the deltas.
Sometimes personally, I'm afraid that I'm not prepared well enough to take the exam. But on the other hand, when I postpone it, then one thing leads to another, and you don't have time to ramp up, you don't have time to prepare, and you lose track of what you had learned, and you forget certain topics. So basically you have to recap, and it's not always a great idea. Depending on the time that you have available, maybe you can try and postpone the exam, obviously considering to dedicate time to the topics to recap them.
All right.
Yeah.
So rapid round, since we're like doing this thing and we're at about 28 minutes until the final round. If you were to say, do you study more and then take the exam? Or do you study and like do you just like take the class, try to cram, and then like force yourself to go? I feel like maybe there are 1-0 types of people.
Yep.
Sean, you know where I'm going. Where do you sort? Like, where do you sort into this? I'm definitely in the latter camp where I'm like, I want to just like throw myself at it and know where I messed up. What about you guys?
I'm afraid to do that with implementation exams. Basically, I don't think that it would help me every implementation exam. For example, with service mapping, I had to read everything and try to read every link from the docs, basically to try and prepare as better as possible for it before trying to take it. It's something that I wouldn't leave to chance or to think that I might be prepared to just try it out and see how it goes. I guess it depends on what's your perception of the exam, right? Your perspective.
What's your
of the exam.
tolerance for pain, right? Because
Right.
like, what's the worst that happen? Like, what's the worst that happens if you fail?
So,
Especially, Sean,
so
go
we've
ahead.
got, no, I was going to say we've got Ben on the full forward down the hill, take it. We've got Ermal on the let's hang back. Ivano, how about you? I think I
So
know how
on
to
my
kind of
on
fall
my
across the
side,
board.
usually I wait because I've been in this thing for a very long time. So now I have like I think 7 certification, and when we
Yeah.
were in PS at the very beginning, we've been forced to take some exams again and again, even if we were passing the exams. Okay,
Yep.
so at least from my side, I know that there is a certain level of, I'm not saying technicality, but a certain level of details that you can remember only if you study
I
for a
just
decent amount of time. So I wait usually a little, at least.
I admitted you guys because I heard the echo too.
sorry.
So
Sorry about that.
yeah, no.
We're split 50-50 because I'm right with Ben. Like I take them, I honestly, and this is horrible, but some of it's because I teach. I almost take them to fail because I'll learn more from failing it. And the information that I get from failing it, not that I would use questions, but it gives me a better understanding of the test. Because then I'm like, now I can help understand when talking to students, oh my gosh, it's crazy hard or these pieces.
This is the thing that you and I've talked about, right? It's that kind of Lorne Michaels, like SNL doesn't go live because it's ready
Right.
sometimes. And it's
Yeah. It goes
it's hard
live because it's 11 o'clock on whatever it is
on a
Saturday
Saturday
night.
night. Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, and I actually like, so I'm gonna say, one thing that I would do if you're listening to this show tonight, and or if you're listening to it in the future, set yourself a date. I think regardless if you're feeling either Armalin or Ivano style, we'll just call that Euro style, which is not wrong, and I think it's actually pretty great. We'll call it Euro style. I've definitely enjoyed Euro style, and I've been that way on a couple of things. I feel like Euro style fashion is actually pretty great. I'm wearing some Saint Laurents just to feel sexy in the chat here, even though you guys can't see them. And I'm going to say that I think that regardless whether you're one way or the other, set yourself a date. I think that that is the key, right? That's the thing that is going to be the one factor that gets you over the hump. Set yourself a date, and regardless of the size of your fridge or like the size of the space that you're, or the like, however, like whatever the thing that you're going to try and stash everything into, whether it be your knowledge, just know you're not going to be ready when you go. It's just like parenting. It's just like doing any job. You're never going to feel like you're totally prepared, and that's okay. That is okay. So, and I love this too for those of you guys who are following up, and ladies too, who are setting a date, making yourselves set a date, and don't just set a date, set an accountability partner. Find somebody who is going to hold you accountable. Did you take the test? Did you take the exam? Did you put it off again? I cannot tell you how many times I have failed to work out because I didn't have a gym buddy. Right? Rip the Band-Aid off. Yes, rip the Band-Aid off. Just do it and set yourself a date. Sometimes it's scarier to know that it's looming or that it's coming or that you think that there's like, you make it bigger in your head. Like, this is why I sometimes like rush full force down the hill on my skateboard and break my teeth or my hip to do it, because I want to rip that Band-Aid off. I love that.
We've got a really interesting question from Danny Arnold about what are the most challenging types of questions on the exam. And I think that's another one of those areas, Danny, where we all answered the question of take it now or take it later, like we were 50-50 down the middle across the four of us. I think if we were to ask which ones of the test prep doc that Ben brought up from the beginning that you can get looking at Now Learning, if we were to look at those, I think there are 5 different categories. We'd probably have 4 different answers on what are toughest. And I don't mean to dodge the question, but I think it kind of varies. For me, I feel like navigation is straightforward. I feel like database I've played with, so I'm familiar with database. If you're less familiar with database types questions, then the administration will be tough for that. Configuration sometimes can be tricky for people who don't have experience in it. And those are areas that I think about.
Okay, so I'm going to toss this back to the larger cohort that is attending along. I actually love this. Which ones are the toughest to answer? And I think that that depends on who you are and where you're coming from, but there's a way to find out for you. And I'm going to tell you like how you discover that. So, and let me make sure that I don't totally flub this. If we get back into the Jeopardy question stuff, which I feel like if you can get to the point where, and those of you guys who actually were in my cohort today who managed to import and start to work on some of these questions and build out your Jeopardy cards, this is a big deal, right? So like if you start to play through these, you'll actually naturally get an answer for you of which ones are the hardest to answer. And you can do this by looking at a couple different things, right? So if we look at importing all of our questions and we build out all of our questions and we start building those out and sharing them, here's a thing that I would love to see. I think we'll all start to agree on category. I think that difficulty will be challenging. And I think that where did this come from will come from all over. But whether you got it right or not, especially if you're sharing this with an accountability partner, if you guys work on a similar set of question cards, ultimately what I wanted to come up with was, let's say that we import a bunch of these Quizlets. One of the things that I wanted everybody to be able to do was just start to review some of the junk data, right? So you look at these cards and you're like, some of these are garbage. Like, what is a transform map? Well, that seems reasonable, right? And then you could say, like, where did this come from? Or what, honestly, like, where, like, what category is this? We could insert a category field. And if we go back and look at our exam prep, we know that transform maps, that's database administration. We should have a category for that, right? We can tie these things back. We can get better as groups. We can get better. And honestly, I'm okay if we all get better as groups, right? Because there's no cheating if we learn. It's not cheating if you learn. I'm just going to say that a million times. This is module 3. And no one in their right mind is on an interview question is going to ask you, I'm sorry, did you learn about transform maps in module 3? No, they are not. They're not going to ask you that. But what you will know by importing all of this stuff is which sections you need to get better at if you lose at Jeopardy, right? Because just like accountability partners, you're going to know, am I doing well at leg day? Am I doing good on cardio day? Am I doing good at upper body day? Right? This is one of those things where if we import all of these garbage questions, here's the thing that we're going to have to figure out. I know that some of my extra profs are talking about this. If we look at this, I know these are garbage questions. Some of these are garbage questions. What's the thing that we got to figure out? Especially if we make this larger. It doesn't matter if it's still in the exam or not. Is this still true? Do I still know this? That's still true. Right? Do I get it or not? Like, and is it a good Jeopardy question? Maybe not. Maybe I rewrite it. Sean, I hear you shuffling.
Sorry. But as I think through, I think that's great. The fact it's almost like when you write when you work through test questions enough, it's the mere fact of getting to know them that makes you more familiar with the content. And that's more beneficial than just answering it correctly. It's getting to know the content and knowing where to look.
Right. I look at these two like field status indicators. What the hell are these?
Right?
These are like ancient, like, and maybe some instructor somewhere once called these out. That's not we don't know if that's a question or not, but you know what? It's not bad if you know it. Right. But actually, red required needs a value. What's the actual right answer to that? Like, if you see something that is red, what's a thing that you remember from taking the class? If you went and took it or went on to any of the, let's say we go to task. Yeah, add the why to the question. Oh, I love this. I love this. And honestly, that makes us all better, my friend. So if I go to task.form, there are going to be few required things. In fact, nothing. But if I go to
Incident.
right. But one of those is going to be red, right? There's a red thing here, a red thing there. And you think about what's driving that requirement. And if you could think through some of the driving of the requirement, that is so much bigger. This is like such a huge, like, I honestly, guys, I like cannot express how much I'm excited about this particular episode because I thought it was just going to be like a test prep episode where we're going to kind of go back and kind of look at regular things. But I feel like this is a level up episode because we're talking about like kind of the drivers that move some of these things, right? That get you better at life and maybe at taking an exam. I don't know. What do you guys think?
100%. I love that some of the questions and tips that have come across this are so much broader than here's what it is on the test, but here's how to study. But even more, here's the next step, because the certification doesn't really get you. You're looking for the job, you're looking for the next opportunity. And there have been some great tips about that that's the coolest thing. Those tips have come from you all, not just us.
Yeah, we didn't have to go there. Like we totally did not. I was trying to save that. I was trying to a thing that the screen is so small. I'm so sorry. That is a thing that I work on. That's a legit thing that I will take into account. And the screen is kind of small, especially if you're mobile. And for all of y'all who have been in my classes this week and last week, you know that the next billion users are all mobile users, and I and my kids are all mobile users. So yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I'm still looking for a solution for that one. Other than like trying to go to the largest text size possible and or editing this video post. Honestly, all right, so hold on. I'm just going to say, if you have an automated solution for editing video after the fact, please hit me up in the comments and or directly via LinkedIn or via my email, because I would love to hear it. I'm still trying to figure that out in terms of like trying to figure out where to like focus some of that stuff without hiring a team of producers to like zoom in on specific things, because we try to do this live to tape. So you let me know. Great comment. The certification lets you know what you can do in the system, but not what you should do in the system. Also, going to say that that's a great shout out for some of the implementation classes, which Armand, like you're chuckling about, because we hammer home some of those points. You could do a thing, but maybe you shouldn't do a thing.
I go that route myself. Usually, I don't think twice about the why. Let's just go and say, "Oh yeah, sure, you can do it." Right? It's easy. Let's just go and do it. But you don't think about the consequences. You suffer them later.
Right. And to Tim's point, yeah, maybe we got Tupac live at a concert. When we did that initial use case, we didn't expect for somebody to resurrect a bunch of dead music stars at various music venues. Yeah, because could you should you? Maybe we're not sure. So we got about 10 minutes left in the chat, guys. Gosh, I haven't even finished with the import yet. And holy cow. And Sean's laughing, and you should.
I'm Dorothy, so I want to go Blanche.
So back at St. Olaf, because sometimes I'm Rose and sometimes I'm Blanche, and many times I'm both. Yeah, so all right, I'm gonna fan myself real quick. Awesome and scary. So as we kind of wrap up tonight's session, for those of you guys who are looking to really get better at this, I want to do two things. On this post, I would love it if you would, even after we finish the show, just let me know what you're most worried about, because that's going to give me some data points. And I'm going to repost the link to this video tonight in a week's time, because we're going to take a break. We're going to actually take a week off from office hours, because we originally this was supposed to be like a marathon. I did not expect to go ultra marathon, because I did not think that we were going to actually extend the deadline for the free fundamentals until October. So I'm taking a week off next week. If anybody wants to step in for me, let me know. I would love that. And I would love to give you the keys to my platform to drive it around for a week. But honestly, I think what would be really, really helpful would be for you guys to post in the comments what you're most worried about, the areas that you feel the shakiest on. And I would love to be able to respond with some sort of either video or content or some sort of like package that lets you both do the thing that we were trying to do tonight, where you take a lot of the data dumps and then clean them up. That's really what I was hoping everybody would do. Whether you get it into the platform or not to play Jeopardy, what I want you to do is take those pieces of data, all those questions, and examine them as if you were a consultant, right? And your job as a consultant is, should this come into my brain?
Yeah, I love that idea. You know, are these questions legit, or do they need a little bit of a look, or which ones can I? And to Steele's earlier point, what are the resources or references that I used to find these? Because those might help you level up.
And can we find ways to keep each other accountable? I've got one last question, and then I'm going to turn it over to everybody for extra credit this week. Advice to somebody who's new to the ecosystem, hopefully start a new ServiceNow related job. Holy cow. I'm definitely going to turn it over to some folks who have done this in the specifically in the ServiceNow ecosystem, and it's Euro style. It's Euro style on this one because I will be real honest. I have not worked as a developer in the ServiceNow ecosystem in America. I've done so in the Sony PlayStation world where I was working in that space. Came over to ServiceNow and doing enablement. So it's kind of similar, but different. And so like I don't have to worry about some of the consulting and some of the third party, first party, second party stuff. I'm going to turn it over to my Euro colleagues right now and be real honest.
So I'm going to answer this. So the advice to someone that would like to start in ServiceNow. So hopefully you have maybe a little bit of experience in this in we say consultancy probably, or even as a developer. I mean, nothing is different, I would say. So a customer is going to ask you crazy things, and more or less will be the same. Of course, you need to spend a decent amount of time on the platform, and we go back to what we discussed at the beginning of the session tonight, on my side tonight, today, about
This morning,
difference
maybe for you
between,
guys.
yes. But anyways, it's the kind of thing. The more you stay on the platform, the better it is. If you in some way try to adapt maybe some requirement that you've seen around into the platform and you try to maybe rebuild them, it doesn't kill you, makes you stronger in that sense. Of course, it takes a little bit of time to digest and maybe we say use specific type of technique or we say criteria or best practices that ServiceNow provides to you, but you have plenty of resources free for you that you can leverage in that sense. But
Well, you can always ask for some accountability partners out there in the field, right? Like
also,
that's the thing.
yeah.
Yeah. I like that.
Community, for example, community is there on purpose. You can find a lot of example. Again, there are plenty of things that you can use. So
I gotta say that.
it's easy.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah. It's never. So the work, everybody. I'm just gonna be real. Is the work is never easy. Nothing is ever easy. We try to make it palatable, and I would say that we make it meaningful. And a lot of the work that we do is quality of life stuff, right? Easy is not maintainable necessarily, but I think the thing that we're trying to push more often than not is a similar thing that was happening as I was leaving the gaming space. Was that we want to make it so that this is the thing that is long-term sustainable, right? We don't want to burn people out. We want to make things that are like when a customer asks for something, we can say, like, hold on, maybe you mean this, right? And sometimes that's some of the patterns that we're trying to set up in courses like these. So when we do a CSA course, when we do some of these kind of, here's the data model, here's the pattern, here's the thing that we're trying to do long term, we're really trying to make it so that you have a way to live a sustainable lifestyle. Because if anything, what Fred was doing from day one was customers don't know what they want. They just know, like, they don't know what they need, but they know what they want, right? I broke a laptop. I can't log into a system. It's supposed to be easy for them. Sometimes it's not easy for us until we get accustomed to some of the patterns that we're supposed to be following. So I really love, Ivano, I love your take on this, where it's, we need to get good at what we're good at and then also make sure that we know where to draw a boundary. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it
agree.
works. I think absolutely works. I mean, my first manager when I joined ServiceNow said one interesting thing, and customer are going to ask you for the toilet on the rooftop, and you should be there to avoid that, not to say yes, we can do that. So going back to that easy is not maintainable. Well, that is also a matter of perception on my side. Maybe it's
But
easy
why
for
can't I have a
me.
toilet on the rooftop? I might
Right.
want to take one right near the pool.
So it's exactly.
And that's perfect
Anyway,
because Fred's thing was a poorly designed requirement will be a toilet on the ceiling.
Exactly.
that's
That's
the English thing, really, or
yeah.
the Scottish thing, because my manager was a Scottish one. But beside that, it gives you an idea. And going back to it's easy is not maintainable. Well, it depends. It's easy for me. Maybe they've been around for a long time in this thing. I can maybe do a lot of funky things and look as an easy thing, but maybe it's not for everyone. And you have to think about everyone. It's not just you, okay? Because you're selling something, you're providing a service, even when you deliver a solution in that sense, and should be usable, and of course also maintainable, and a lot of other things. Not necessarily for the end user, it's also for the administrators. That is something that you're going to become if you complete this first step, in ServiceNow.
Yeah, and
So,
and I like that too. And there's I can't see because I'm not doing the LinkedIn chat at the same time. But there's the reason I say making something is because you'll learn by making. Let's say that you're a contractor and you're like, cool, I'm gonna make a building. It's almost like The Sims, right? Like you're like, just gonna build this apartment building and I'm gonna get all my Sims in there and I'll make a bunch of money or whatever. And I'm gonna put a toilet on the roof next to the pool. That'll be popular, right? How maintainable is that? Like, how can you continue to do that? And I think that one of the things that I really want everybody to take away from tonight's episode is, you know what? Sometimes I hate that phrase, but like when the rubber meets the road, you're like, oh, snap. Actually, we hit a bunch of nails along the way. You got to find those things. You got to understand where those are. And you don't do that until you actually do and find the problems. You got to find the problems first. And the only way you find the problems is to build stuff, right? You got to build the tent. Like, how many of you guys, like, I'm sure all of you guys have gone out to camp, or maybe, I don't know if that's a thing in Europe. I've backpacked and slept on plenty of benches with my backpack and then also been ticketed. But like, and then spent a bunch of money on a Euro pass to like sleep on a train somewhere around in a circle. But it's like you have to build the thing in order to figure out where it breaks, right? I'm gonna turn it over to Ramal because like he's one of our like other guests here.
Okay, so the question is pretty interesting. Danny says, okay, I'm looking to go to the developer route. My question would be, do you enjoy that topic?
Right.
Basically, that's the point. For me, for example, I prefer personally, I prefer troubleshooting. I prefer IT operations. So the developer route, just because it's right now maybe ideal for most students that are attending the course, for me might not be the best choice. Basically, it depends on if you enjoy, because you are going to do it 8 hours per day, right? So it's a matter of, if you are planning on going that route, it's not just for the career, but it's also something you should enjoy while you are doing it.
That's a fantastic point, right? Like my son is somebody who like I could try to give him the argument all day. Like, look, you could be a ServiceNow developer, you could make a bunch of money, like you could do this thing. You've been working with this platform your whole life. You've already built a bunch of service catalog items. You had to debug like all of these scripts. And he's like, Dad, um, like I'm just gonna give you the bird because like you're not cool and that's not what I want to do and I don't enjoy it. And there's a whole list of things and like students in my class like they're like I hate your son so much, right? But like honestly, I don't think he wants to do this work. He doesn't enjoy it. What he actually enjoys is getting into the fundamentals and the like all of the fiddly bits of music. And I'm like fine with that, right? Because if he's going to get there, that means he's going to get good. And get good in like the video game get GIT space GUD sense, right? He's going to get good and he's going to want to be motivated to continue to do that thing. And if the dollar signs are the only thing motivating you, like if that's it, like okay, cool, fine. But yeah, like honestly, a lot of the stuff that we do is about just trying to figure out how to make it worthwhile to you. And if this is a place, if this is if this is like a benchmark, if this is a moment in your journey, welcome. And we're going to try and help you get there. But if that's like, if you're like, I only want to do this because my manager told me to, that's cool too. But like, I don't think you're going to get super, 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 super far. So a lot of this is about, as Danny, as we're saying, like, how do we solve problems, right? How do we fix stuff? How do we go through and figure out like, what is it that we want to address? And honestly, that's also going to help you get the job. How do you solve business pain? Right. Yeah. So I know we're actually a couple minutes over, which is wild. Usually like we're at a point where we're like, oh my God, get us out of here. Tank, I need an exit. So this last CSA, like, well, not last, because we'll probably do another one of these. Maybe we'll do a supercut. I'm hoping two things. I have a call out for everybody. Please message us with if you take the CSA and you pass, let us know, send us a message, tell us, like, give us a like, heck yeah, we did it. Encouragement for other people. Message me on this channel. Sean, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm sorry, I just posted on the feed two things. One is, speaking of supercuts, a little YouTube of some people who wanted to wish you luck for taking the CSA. Some of them are actually people taking the CSA classes right now themselves with you. So I thought that might be cool. And some of them are instructors, etc. But the other is exactly the ask that Ben was mentioning was, when you're done, if you would share it forward, take the little 5-second video and post it in LinkedIn or something with the tags. And I put the tags in there. I'm learning now, and ServiceNow and Now Learning and ServiceNow training would be great. We'll amplify it and share it. Yes. We'd love that. So, and that's the only reason I wanted to interrupt, Ben. And I'm sorry. I just wanted if we see those tags, then we can see it, even if we're not connected to you. And I'd really love to see that. And I know Ermal is another one of the drivers on getting those kind of pieces socially shared. So put them on Ermal, your Twitter and TikTok and all of those places, and tag them.
If you need inspiration, I mean, hit us up. We've got all of the ideas, because there's so many things that I know that I built here that I would love for you to build again. You'll probably be able to do better, right? Like I would love to rebuild so many things here at the household that I run that I have not had time to redo. So if you need inspiration, if you need a use case, if you're suffering because you're like, I don't know what to build, let me know, because I would love for you to rebuild so many things and you can take all the credit. I would be happy for you to take all the credit for redoing all of the things that like I would love to redo in my own use case. I built every automation in my house on ServiceNow because I needed to figure out how it worked. And if I'm going to try and figure out how it works, I got to have my own use case. So that means, how do I get my kids to take out the trash? How do I get them to take out the laundry? Like, how do I get them to do the dishes? Right? Like, that's all ServiceNow stuff that I can then hit them up on their phone. How do I get them to figure out, like, if they're going to borrow the car and I'm out of town, what happens? If I'm going to get them to automatically order groceries while I'm out of town, how does that happen? Like, that all happens through ServiceNow here. you can rebuild those things. If you need those use cases, please hit us up in the comments. We will give them to you. I would love for you to rebuild them and put them on the share site. Love that.
And I just wanted to actually emphasize what Sean said earlier, Ben, about the sharing, the sharing of when you pass the exam. Basically, just not to let us know, but even just to share with everyone that you passed the exam. I've seen plenty of times in Twitter someone that shares that they successfully passed the exam, and immediately they get replies and tweets from other users that are asking, "Hey, how was the exam? Right? Did you find it really challenging, or was there any question that you remember that might have been something that you struggle to answer?" Right? So you get really valuable feedback if you actually share that you passed the exam successfully. So it's helpful to everyone else.
Yeah, and I want to say for me personally, you're more than welcome to connect with me on LinkedIn, and I'm pretty sure Sean and Ermal and Ivano. I feel like all of us are thumbs up on that. Yes, and please. In terms of additional materials, I feel like that's a thing that we're going to continue to build out, right? I love this question. So I feel like this is absolutely a deep dive for a future episode because I would love to do a whole take on this. This is the thing that I was going to do a whole Knowledge 2019 talk on, which is ITIL Dad. And I would be more than happy to discuss dashboards, SLAs, task lists, VTBs, and the whole 9 yards that you guys can build out about like making your kids accountable for all of the mess and all of the stuff, especially when you're out of town, and maybe some integrations to things like Amazon or HelloFresh or other things like that if you need to. So I would love that for the future. It's super frustrating. Oh my goodness. Super frustrating because, well, what is parenting other than being like the help desk? I'll just put that out.
That's a whole other series, Ben. That's a whole other channel.
It might be. It might be. It might be absolutely. And I know we're like 10 minutes over. Thank you guys all so much for making this 2-month extravaganza like a huge success. I'm really, really super stoked about how everybody was super engaged. And I'm really excited that I feel like we really drove a lot of folks to figure out, well, how can I do this? So continue to send your questions, your comments. We will put them in the show notes. Ben.forrest at ServiceNow, Sean.McLean at ServiceNow. And we will eventually get to a form that you can go to. And I really, really, really appreciate everything you guys do. So everyone, I want to say thank you for giving it your best shot, and we will take it from there. And keep an eye out on the show page for future episodes, and we will take it from there, guys. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate it.
All right, take care.